afternoon, viewers. My name is Ida Chama. I'm coming from National Food and Nutrition Commission. I'm the acting head of Communication, Nutrition, Education and Communication Unit. So today it's a follow-up on the subject that we started on Monday, and we are talking about dietary diversity. So today we want to know the recommendations that have been put in place for us to follow the dietary diversity and achieve its main purpose. Of course, eating different types of food from different food groups, the 6 that we know for Zambia, makes us stay strong and healthy. So most foods that we are going to prepare or we are going to eat, we should ensure that the food that we are going to eat, it should be mixed. Why I'm saying so, that is tip number 1, because if you look at the foods that we eat as Zambian food, we prepare individual foods. If I prepare nshima, I'll have the chicken separately, and I'll have the vegetables separately. So the tips for this quality diet through that diversity, we are saying we need to put probably different foods being prepared in one pot. In our Zambian setup, in the olden days, we used to have dishes where we can have groundnuts, we have the maize, we have the beans in one pot, cooked in one pot. Another example that I'll give, you might have the groundnuts, the pumpkin itself, the fruit, and then you have the peanut butter mixed or prepared and mixed in one pot. Such type of diets, I know, like people from Southern, they know maybe Chipotanga as well as Eastern. That's the type of a meal where you have the fresh maize, and then you have the pumpkin itself, the fruit, and then you add the peanut butter in it. Such type of a meal is quite rich. Already just a spoon, a scoop of spoon, you are already eating foods from 3 different food groups. So what we are saying is that one of the recommendations, we should now start learning to combine different foods in one pot. Of course, dishes are, they are dynamic. We develop these dishes. In the olden days, you see that a lot of people used to mix groundnuts to certain relishes, like, ifisashi. But this time around, a lot of people have abandoned the ifisashi, where the only place where you can go and eat ifisashi is the Matereto area. But we are saying we need to start preparing such type of foods within our home. Why I said so, it's easier so that you have already foods from different food groups mixed in one pot. The next meal that you are going to have, you'll find that, again, if you mix some more of the different foods, then you'll be able to meet the body requirements and all the nutrients that you need. And this actually helps to keep the body in good health. There are certain nutrients that you may need like in large amounts, others in small amounts. That's why we have micronutrients and macronutrients. The macro, actually, those are some of the nutrients that you need in large amounts. This will include proteins, the carbohydrates, which we are calling in this case the cereals, starchy roots and tubers. That's the carbohydrate. That's where you find the foods that will provide the carbohydrates. And then we have, I've talked of the proteins, the carbohydrates. These are the macronutrients. And then you have other nutrients like the vitamins and minerals. These are micro. there's micro and macro, meaning that the smaller ones, the ones that are needed in smaller quantities, are called micronutrients. And these actually, they all fall into these food groups that Zambia has adopted. But then, in terms of the food that we need to eat, it's something that now we look at who this individual is. What activities are you involved in? So the other tip that we need to know, there are people who are seated in offices. Do they need a lot of the food that provide all this? This takes us to decide in terms of quantity that one needs to eat. Of course, from the, I cannot demonstrate, but if someone walks in a health facility where there's a nutritionist, they will be able to calculate the exact amount of food that one needs in a day, with regard to the gender, with regard to age, with regard to weight, with regard to height, with regard to the physical activity that one is involved in. So there are people who have a sedentary lifestyle, others are quite active. So the amount of food that they would require to provide the necessary nutrients to meet the demands of their bodies will be different from somebody who is very active, like somebody who runs, an athlete. So those would require a different type of quantities that they can consume. So these are some of the tips that we should know when we are talking of dietary diversity. Because some people will just say, oh, it's dietary diversity, today I haven't eaten this and that. Then you overeat. From each group, you need to find the quantities. How much is it that you need to eat? This one, we need to see the professionals in healthy facilities who can do the calculation for you, and you come up with some kind of a diet plan. Of course, not to lose weight or to gain weight, but the way you are in your health status, then they will be able to provide what your body actually demands or requires. So this is important for us to know in terms of what is it that we should eat. Of course, we know if we look into literature, we know that an average person, adult, would require 2,100 kilocalories in terms of energy requirement or caloric requirement. But all those, the specialists, the nutritionists in the facilities will be able to help you to calculate, because these are some of the parameters that are used for one to find out what is it one can consume in a given time. Because most of us, like if you look at me, I work in an office where most of the time you are seated on the computer, and this time around, because of the e-digital, most information, instead of pushing the files, they are channeled through an email. So in a day, you are seated. Out of maybe the 8 hours, you find that 6 hours you are seated. So you need to find the amount of food that you need to consume. I know that you are using the brain and it requires a lot of energy, but that energy needs to be translated. How much is it that the brain requires for one who is sedentary requires to feed? So it is important to know those tips and ensure that we eat accordingly with the issue of dietary diversity. We are looking at dietary diversity and the tips that you need to follow. Eat from all the 6 food groups. Ensure that you are eating the right amount of food, and indeed you can only know exactly what you need if you go to the health facilities. But then the other areas to look at is the type of job that you are doing, the weight that you are carrying, your height, and also you should look at your gender. Are you female? Are you male? So the needs, the nutrition needs actually are different. So those are the things that we should look at as we look at the dietary diversity.
Thank you very much. That was the Nutrition Corner on the Camnet Lunch Cafe. And we are now getting into the next segment. And the next segment is the segment where we give you a heads up on what is happening around us and what we expect in our evening main news tonight. So before we get into the details and the nitty-gritties of the stories that are expected to make the headlines in our news this evening, let's take a short break.
Water is life. Each drop counts and each must be cherished. Our tried and tested product meets all international standards. With our smart drip technology, we aim to deliver precision irrigation designed to reduce blockage and wastage, ensuring a high yield. Renglow, your smart irrigation partner.
Welcome back. So let's quickly get into the stories that we do expect to come through in our evening menus in a segment that we call the Emerging Stories segment. The first story says Patriotic Front Chilubi constituency member of Parliament, Mulenga Fube, has charged that it is unprofessional for Inspector General of Police, Grafel Musamba, to insinuate that the Patriotic Front recruited junkies into the service. Now, Mr. Fube tells Camnet News that it is an insult to the integrity of some credible men and women in uniform who are professional in their conduct. Let's have a look at this.
When feed goes up, it means chickens will go up. It also means fish, which also relies on maize as best material. Because currently, the fish we are consuming in the country is not coming from natural, much of it, especially fresh fish on the market, is coming from the 11 fisheries that we have in the country. It's not coming from the natural, water bodies. Yes, we know that a chunk of dry fish and many other salted fish and the like is coming through that route. But when we look at the scale of production, much of the fish that we are consuming in the common market, like the urban area, even much of the rural areas, as things stand, is coming from the fisheries. And if it's coming from the fisheries, maize being the best material, it means that soon we are likely to have high prices of fish in terms of packaging, high prices of chicken, because feed has to be produced out of that best material, even when other components come in to make feed. But maize becomes is such a critical base material in making feed. And that's my worry, because in as far as we'd like to be patriotic, the government has to ask that, to question that question, to answer that question. When we look at the budget of 2023, I don't see much of solutions, especially that the 2023 budget, especially the transfer from FISIP Pure to CASIP, which is the Comprehensive Agriculture Support Program, just as put weight on extension services. It has not invested in anything seriously. As we speak, even the $300 million that was talked about in terms of farm blocks has not been implemented as we expected. So, given that scenario, we are caught in a crisis. We are caught in a crisis as a country.
So that's the story there by Mulenga Fube, the Patriotic Front Member of Parliament for Chilubi constituency, and talking to us about how they feel that some officers who are professional in the police service would be affected by the statement by the IG to say the Patriotic Front recruited junkies into the service. Let's move ahead. The Transparency International Zambia has expressed concern that the number of cases analyzed by the Financial Intelligence Center has been reducing over time, thus limiting the increase in the number of cases disseminated to law enforcement agencies. Let's have a look at this.
From an overall point of view, we are very concerned that the number of cases that have been analyzed by the FIC has been reducing over time. Certainly when you look at the last 3 years that we have seen this report being produced. So this particular one shows that only 2.7% of the reports that were received actually proceeded to be looked at by the FIC. This is against 8.2% that we saw with the report for 2021, and I think the one for 2020 had 16.1% or something like that. And so what this shows is that certainly over the last 3 reports, we have progressively seen a reduction in terms of the total number of cases that are looked at, and we think that this is a very big area of concern for us. It's a worrying trend which probably could point to the fact that there are some weaknesses and gaps that are making it difficult for the FIC to deliver on its mandate in that sense. And so we would like to call on the new board that was recently appointed not to leave any stone unturned in terms of addressing addressing the underlying financial and even technical challenges that could be responsible for this worrying state of affairs. Because what you want to see as we go forward is that you'd like to see the center doing a lot more work in terms of the cases that it analyzes. And so if the numbers are reducing year in, year out, then it points to something serious that is happening, and we do hope that the board will be able to provide that strategic oversight and direction that will help the FIC to be effective and effectively execute the mandate that it is called to execute.
Thank you very much. That is another story that we expect to make the cut in the evening news tonight at exactly 19:30 on Camnet TV. Now remember that you can catch us on channel 274 on DSTV, channel 106 on Topstar, and channel 25 on Go TV. Those are the channels you can catch Camnet TV if you want to get the details of those stories that we are just showing you. They will be coming through at 19:30 this evening. So moving on, the Food Reserve Agency, FRA, has paid out 595,140,000 kwacha during the ongoing crop marketing season. Now, FRA Public Relations Coordinator John Chipandwe says the response from farmers is encouraging and is assuring their crops to the nearest FRA depot as payments are made within the shortest period since funds are available. Let's look at this.
The Food Reserve Agency has paid out 595,945,280 kwacha to farmers that delivered grade A white maize during this year's ongoing crop marketing season. The total quantity of maize purchased so far, as at 24th July 2023, is 146,948.50 metric tons. Now, this is equivalent to 2,938,970 by 50 kilogram bags of white maize. The agency so far has noted that the response from farmers is encouraging and is assuring other farmers across the country to deliver their crops to the nearest FRA depots, as payments are made within the shortest period since funds are available. Further, farmers are assured of accurate scales that have been certified by the Zambia Meteorology Agency. We also, as FRA, wish to remind farmers that as the harvesting season progresses, they should not sell all their produce, but only what is excess, and after putting aside a variety of food for domestic future consumption. This is due to the fact that national food security begins at household level. The excess harvest can thereafter be delivered to any nearest FRA depot, and the agency will buy the stock and keep in the national strategic food reserves for future use as a nation. This will facilitate national food security. Therefore, we are urging farmers to adhere to this guidance for the country to continue being food secure.
Another story there from the Food Reserve Agency assuring farmers that payments don't take time now, since funds are readily available, as announced by the public relations manager at FRA. So let's move on now. Let's look at sports. As you might be aware, the Copper Queens participating in the current ongoing World Cup, and their dreams have unfortunately crashed after another humiliating defeat by losing 5-0 to Spain in a Group C match at the Eden Park Stadium in Auckland, New Zealand. Now, Spain were in no compromising mood, getting in their opening goal 9 minutes after a thunderous shot from Teresa Abeyera, which gave keeper Eunice Sakala no chance. Spain made it 2 in the 13th minute after a free header from Jennifer Hermoso, who connected from Alexia Putellas. A pass from to set up a pace to another difficult night for the Copper Queens. Spain scored their 3rd goal of the day through Alba Redondo, who had her goal initially thought to be offside, but was overturned after video review in the 69th minute. The Copper Queens had moments of their own in the game, but were not good enough to break the Spain backline. Zambia, who play their final game at the World Cup on July the 31st against Costa Rica before heading home. So that's about the Zambia, the Copper Queens participation in the ongoing World Cup in New Zealand and Australia. They've lost their first 2 games, so it means that they've been booted out of that particular tournament and are playing Costa Rica on the 31st for formality's sake. Because Costa Rica also are leaving. They have lost 2 games. They lost to Japan, they lost to Spain. So Spain and Japan proceed from Group C, where the Copper Queens, Japan, Spain and Costa Rica were competing for those 2 slots that have been gotten by Spain and Japan. Now let's move on and let's get to the next segment. Now the next segment is about reminding us from where we have come from and just giving us a picture of what used to happen a few years back. But before we do that, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be looking at the forgotten stories.
Get all the latest updates in court news only on Camnet TV. We take you and make you feel part of the court sessions through our in-depth coverage of the adjudication process. Get informed on those who have been arrested, delayed and denied the police bond or bail victims, persons taking plea, court adjournments, verdicts, and those administration issues in the judiciary. Camnet TV is on channel 274 on DSTV, channel 25 on GoTV, and find us on channel 106 on Topstar. You can also follow and give us a like on our social media platforms, Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Welcome back. So now this is the segment that we call the Forgotten Stories segment, where we bring you stories that used to happen a few years back, just to refresh our memories and see where we have come from. And today we start in 2020 when we saw many Zambians complaining over the high cost of living. Let's have a look at this.
Traders in Lusaka's central business district have complained of escalating hunger in their homes due to an economic shutdown caused by the coronavirus pandemic. Their businesses have since gone down due to various economic adjustments. The traders are calling on government to support them as they try to come up with innovative ways of boosting their businesses as well as their customer base.
Open number surveillance business mankarako slow just because mondo surveillance but kudala vintu venzisabe bwino. So okay tima tiamike no pempa kuri mulungu tima nambo enda isiri ikasire cheso chabe. Kasire tundepa mesi vintu vizankala che nomo che mushemushi enefuna okay ni mankala oyembekeze nimanga che patient pays be nimafuna kusogoro ngakona business ya mushe akweba at least nenga assistant zira coronavirus funika che mapempero mulungu eka nde provide me kuti vintu vingangale mushe kaife na ife ana inabwera cheme ku 20 bilibonse.
Coronavirus yabweza vintu pansi economy. In terms like of munga vena ngoma jobs munga vena emikira so na maafu ya vuta circulation.
Reporting for Camnet Television in Lusaka, Zambia, Namwinga.
So that was 2020, and still in 2020, we got another story where some people were swindled through an online investment scheme. Let's have a look at this.
With a rise in the number of people using digital platforms, criminals have also established their presence online. Many citizens have been scammed through online money-making platforms such as My Zamfund, GoLike, coin auctions, and many others. Citizens are lured into investing money with the hope of getting more in return through online money circulation schemes. While authorities have warned of this and classified such activities as being illegal, some state that due to the rising cost of living, the temptation to make extra income is almost impossible to resist. A group of over 30,000 Zambians have reportedly been swindled by an online money-making platform known as Itesco. Group representative Kapolo Wechembo explains that the group was led into believing that the online platform was registered with credible authorities such as the Patents and Companies Registration Agency PACRA, and hence willingly invested.
Once you deposit your money and then you are given 30 orders to match. So some of us, we thought it would be very helpful for us looking at how the economy is. It was an opportunity for us to start making money. Like we make quick money, fast money.
The group has lost a reported total of about 23 million kwacha from the business whose owners are not known, as they are non-Zambian residents who only operate online.
I joined Itesco in June when a friend of mine approached me to say it's happening. You see, people are withdrawing money And then I saw him once withdrawing money. That's how I got convinced. And moreover, upon joining, I requested for the registration papers for the same business, which were presented to me. They say this business was registered through PACRA, and then they used to pay even ZRA tax, of which to me, it proved to me to say this is a genuine business. That's how I joined. It was e-test platform which I joined. And then I was scammed about my 3,000 kwacha. Yeah, it is all gone with those guys.
Police have since launched investigations into the matter while urging citizens to exercise caution. Zipporah Mushala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
So that is a story there from 2021 when several Zambians were swindled out of their hard-earned cash through an online investment scheme. Now, moving on, in the same year 2021, the United Party for National Development, UPND, accused the Inspector General of Police, Kakoma Kanganja, of not being fair for banning political parties from using the distribution of masks to campaign amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's have a look at this.
On the 26th of July 2021, the Zambia Police Service, through its Inspector General of Police, issued a warning statement to what he termed as political players abrogating the Electoral Code of Conduct and disregarding COVID-19 guidelines in the disguise of distributing masks and thus gathering large crowds. This, however, has not settled well with the United Party for National Development, UPND, who have cited the police as being selective in the manner they apply the law. Speaking at a media briefing where he highlighted a number of issues, UPND Chairman for Elections Gary Kombo says the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Kakoma Kanganja, himself was not too long ago seen doing the very thing he is condemning, as well as the ruling Patriotic Front.
This is the man himself, the one who issued the ban, Mr. Kakoma Kanganja. Is it because he is in uniform and we are not? How can you do such a don't coever? He himself went to engage with the public, talking about violence. We also need to talk to our people about desisting from violent activities.
Mr. Nkombo further cited the alleged abuse of the Zambia Air Force to disadvantage the opposition UPND.
Because Zambia Air Force are basically misconducting themselves. They are prohibiting Mr. Hichilema and putting spanners in the works for him to travel in his own country. This is very unfair. This is extremely unfair, and we must state to the Air Force as an institution of government that human beings come and human beings go.
The chairman for elections also cited the Electoral Commission of Zambia as abusing their power by what he termed as an invisible hand, clearly from the Patriotic Front, and therefore called on party members to go all out campaigning while upholding the COVID-19 guidelines.
To our members, I want to be loud and clear. Follow suit. Follow suit. Do not be intimidated. Because what is good for the goose is good for the gander. You can't allow a situation where only one party is allowed to campaign. The idea is follow suit. So what is good for the goose is good for the gander. What needs to happen is that President Lungu must stop his invisible hand to get the police, the ECZ, and now the Air Force to stop us from campaigning.
Is this a case of all animals being equal, with some more equal than others? Liseli Kanyanga Mubanga, Camnet TV News in Lusaka.
So that's another story that we got from the Forgotten Stories basket. Now, last but not the least, in 2021, we had a story on illegal bus stations. Now, let's have a look at this story.
Illegal bus stations in Lusaka have been a perennial problem. This causes traffic congestion as most two-way lanes have been turned into one-way lanes due to buses parking on the side of the road. Suggestions to build more bus stations have often been turned down by drivers due to the locality of the proposed bus stations being far from the central business district CBD, where business is booming. The Bus and Taxi Drivers Association says the long-lasting solution to this problem is constructing holding spaces within the CBD to ensure that no buses park along the road. Association Secretary General Mr. Sidney Mbewe says there is need for political will to ensure that illegal bus stations are dismantled in order for this problem to be permanently solved.
Now, besides the health hazard, the illegal bus stations have continued to cause havoc for motorists that want to drive around the city. In that you cannot drive around the city without being landing yourself in one sort of traffic jam or the other at any time of the day. Maybe in the morning you'll find yourself in a traffic jam. In the afternoon you'll find yourself in a traffic jam. Late in the evening it's even worse. So this gives Lusaka a very unpleasant outlook as the capital city of the country. And it also deters a number of people that would want to come and have a look at Lusaka as a tourist destination.
He has further called for the process of creating bus-dedicated lanes as stipulated in the National Transport Policy to be expedited, saying this will ensure that buses are always on the move and do not park at undesignated places.
Now, in the reformation of the public transport sector, there is initiative to use the improved road infrastructure to create bus-dedicated lanes. Now, with the creation of bus-dedicated lanes, it means that buses then will not need to park at bus stations because they will be doing runs throughout the day on allocation of time and demand. So this means that we will not need to have bus stations within the CBD. And also, because this will be a clearly secured circuit of buses running within this and around the city, it means that any bus that runs in this city must have completed and full compliance levels, which will be checked at every point that it's passing through.
Zambia aims to have a well-established transport system by 2030. Zipporah Mushala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
So that was the Forgotten Stories segment where we give you stories from way back, just to remind you and refresh your memories as regards what was happening in those particular days. Now let's move on. Let's get to the next segment. And now I have been joined by our resident analyst, Patrick Soko, just to help us analyze some of the stories that we are looking at today. And it is at this time where you, if you have any contribution, can call us on the numbers that are on your screens so that you also give us your opinions as regards to what we are looking at. Patrick, it's always a pleasure to have you on the program. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and interesting indeed. It's been a while I've been on this program.
Yeah.
It's good to have you back, though. We did look at some interesting stories. The first story, of course, we did speak to the issue of police and the IG saying that the Patriotic Front did engage junkies as police officers. And also we did look at another story talking to the issue of the Financial Intelligence Center. TIZ were saying that the cases analyzed by the FIC has been reducing over time. And also another story came from the Food Reserve Agency, where they're saying that they've paid out 990 million kwacha to farmers that have supplied maize to them. You might want to pick some of the stories there and give us your analysis before we go to the forgotten stories.
So some of the emerging stories, the story pertaining to the Food Reserve Agency, they are saying that they have started paying out farmers and that they have been receiving overwhelming response. However, there's been concern to that effect that overall the price which the AFRI is buying the commodity is also contributing to the price of meal meal. So, and that's another topical story that we'll continue to follow up. And it is still a relevant story even up to now, because we are seeing to it that if at all the price it will continue to be at that stage, we don't expect the price of meal to go to 50 kwacha. That is a foregone issue. But now, in terms of stabilizing the price of meal to a stable price, is something that the government has to do, and that's what people are expecting them to do. And another story that we looked at on the emerging stories, the story pertaining to the Financial Intelligence Center report, where they are saying that there's been a reduction in terms of the numbers of the cases they analyzed and that have been seconded to the law enforcement agency. That is also a source of concern for TIZ, because they feel the center has to analyze more in order to make sure that they have more cases, they get closure on more cases, or they submit more cases to the law enforcement agencies, being the Drug Enforcement Commission, the Zambia Police, the Anti-Corruption Commission, among others. Now, this is an interesting subject, because we are still talking about the Financial Intelligence Center report, which continues to highlight a lot of issues pertaining to money laundering activities, financial fraud activities. So we continue to track that story as well. Then among the emerging stories, also the other story that was there is a story coming from, I don't know, you can remind me.
The Transparency International.
I've done the Transparency one.
Sure.
Then transparency, we've talked about transparency.
We
had a story of
Chipiri MP. Sorry, Chilubi
MP.
Sure.
He's talking about Mimio. Then the FRA, and then those are similar issues. The Chilubi MP is concerned that the utterances by the Inspector General of Police recently that the PF recruited junkies in the system were that I needed to be sensitive as they addressed that, because probably during that time not everyone would have been recruited, would be incompetent by then. But the way the statement came out, it was like it was anyone who was recruited under the Patriotic Front administration was being put in the same bracket, and that was the concern there by the lawmaker. However, among the emerging stories, we have an interesting discussion, Cozy, and this is where we can just spend more time and look at it. We were playing the game, and we had also Bruce Murray there in the interview talking about the team having played better than they played against Japan. But this is a source of concern. Others have been arguing to say, but what parameters are you using to say we have played better?
You can't say we've played better when we've gotten the same result as in the first game.
Yes, I don't think we scored any goal today.
No, we did not.
We did not.
We conceded five, just like the first game.
Think that we played better. So those are some of the things. But we have our on social media, on our Facebook page, there's a comment from Alexis Quincy, or Onsi, it's quite a tricky name. He's saying the stage is extremely too big for Copper Queens. Next time the team will do better, having learned lessons. That's what he's commenting. True to that
the team will learn a lot from that that experience. However, it shows in terms of the technical aspect that we are lacking, because I don't think we were leading the game, or we were understanding the opponents, or we had a strategy of how we want to win this game. We just like got into the pitch and start playing. Yes, Kabina Mukwana 11,
Kabien. So for me, I would only equate that to our team for the ladies in Chawama.
Oh yeah,
that is just playing there, and because the way Spain was playing, we were just giving them the balls. Then they keep the possession. After we get the ball, we give it to them again. They keep possession. They score us. But while we are failing to keep the ball, we only showed a little bit of energy during the beginning of the second half. That's when we showed a little bit of energy in terms of us going for the ball. But when we started the match, we were on an apologetic side, where we just feel, no, I don't think we can.
We don't belong here.
We do not belong here. This team is too big for us. So all those factors, I think psychologically we were defeated. So for me, it is. I think there's any difference from what we played against Japan, because the score margin is the same. 5 goals to 0. Again, 5 goals to 0 against Spain. Yes, these are world-class teams, but sometimes what you just need when you're playing such teams is a little bit of resilience. If you say you're defending, you cannot even defend, because at the end of the day, if you're saying you're defending, you can defend, and when you are losing, you're losing with a margin of 2 goals or 1-0. Now you claim you are defending, again you are losing by 5 goals to 0. Then it means even if you pack that bus behind, you cannot contain the pressure of those guys, because they are technically advanced and their skills, they are able to pass the balls when you least expect it. Then I also noticed the inability by our players to keep the ball. They were failing to keep the ball, but what does that translate into? I think those are the basics. So now you keep the ball, you just pass it over, you just that kind
to
of
whom it may concern.
To whom it may concern, but it concerned mostly Spain, because they were well positioned. So whenever you kick the ball, the Spain was getting those loose balls. So at the end of the day, for me, it is indeed a learning process, but we also have to draw lessons that when we are participating in tournaments of such magnitude, we need to be prepared in all areas.
Sure.
That's why for me, I argue, when it comes to the men's national team, we'll be participating in the qualifiers, Cozy. Because I think if this team is going to qualify to the World Cup, it should not qualify to the mercy of other teams, or to the lapses of other teams. So it means that you should beat everyone in that group convincingly, and go and participate at a world stage, at a bigger tournament, as opposed to you playing the team, maybe Morocco lapses, and then you counterize on that. I don't think that is a spirit we can have for us as a team to go and win the World Cup. So winning, I think, is about beating the teams that matter. So the team that matter in the group mostly is Morocco. So the Zambia men's national team also should be able to beat everyone convincingly and go to the tournament. Otherwise, if they are not able to beat everyone, let them just remain. Then let the team that will emerge the top, let them deservingly beat all the teams there and be able to progress there, because that tells us that this team is ready. Because also Morocco set the standard high because of the previous performance which they had during the World Cup. So even going forward, for me, I expect the same energy even for the men's national team. We should prepare adequately and make sure that we are competing at that level. Truth be told, there is always a first time. The first time, because we cannot take away everything. The fact that we qualified, we did better. We did perform better in our continent. We did better. But it also tells us to say we can still go a long way as a continent if we continue to promote female football. So we'll see the teams that are remaining, if at all, they'll also give us better results. But they have seen also others who have disappointing results other than our Copa Queens who are participating for the first time. So at the end of the day, I think truly it is a learning process.
It is a learning process indeed, and I think that next time a Zambian team participates at such a stage, you don't go to the World Cup with a mentality like, like the World Cup belongs to other teams. We are just there to make the 32 because the other teams are not up to 32. So we are just there to be no. You go with whoever goes there. That nobody owns that trophy. Everyone is going to fight for it. So go there as fighters also. That's the mentality that we should build in the players as they go. Look, these players had camped in Europe. They played high, what can you say, Germany.
They even managed to beat Germany.
Yes, those are friendly matches that Ireland, they played Ireland, they played Switzerland, they played Germany. So these are, they were camped in Germany. So what else do you need from a team for them to perform better? They had the high-level friendlies, and they performed well. The first one they lost, we said, no, we are learning one or two things. The second one they drew, we said, okay, we have picked lessons from the first game, so that's how we performed better. And the third game they won, and beating Germany of all teams. So we thought, no, maybe they are ready. Then you go to the World Cup, and then, no, the bootsy, let's get new bootsy, go into the next game. No, gentlemen, I think we really need to be serious and change the attitude of play. And I think also we must be ready technically. The technical bench must understand the opponents. In the game against Japan, we looked like we had no idea of whom we were playing. We did not, it's like they never took time to watch Japan and see their strength and their weaknesses and how we are going to counter that. So when we went into the game against Japan, Japan just played and we were nowhere around them. So I think also we need to understand the team that we are playing. Try and watch some videos of their previous games. It helps.
Yes, yeah, you are right. How do we maintain position? How do we make sure that we counter their movements? How do we cross the spaces? I think those are the strategies that we needed to foresee, because Spain plays just like Barcelona.
Yes.
They play 1-2 football. They make sure that they hold the possession.
You and I, last time, were watching the highlights of the Japan game where you had 6 defenders in the box, 2 Japanese strikers in the box. The ball comes in, and the Japanese players win the ball and they score.
They score. You see.
So positioning was horribly
wrong. So poor positioning also, and ability to move, flexibility. So I think that is important. So, but the result for today was that we had Spain 5 and our Copa Queens 0. And we see we have our next match against, is it Czech Republic?
No, Costa Rica.
Costa Rica, yes.
Yes.
So Costa Rica now is also another team that has also been beaten twice by Japan and Spain. And you see, so we'll be playing losers against losers. They should just play this game with an open-minded for me. And just play to enjoy the ball.
To enjoy themselves.
Enjoy themselves. And they shouldn't be fearful, because I heard some of the players, some of the interviews the players had, they were saying, no, we're never...
Yes. Actually, that's Kundananji.
So now I was wondering to say, but how?
And you see, we have players that Barbara is well known for scoring goals. She made history at the Olympics. Kundananji plays in Spain, and she has scored over 20 goals. These are the players that they play against, the ones that beat us. So we really expected a little bit more from these players.
For me, I wasn't happy with our inability to keep the ball just for a longer period of time. We just pass each other, play to the nearest man. I think those are the basics.
Sure, the basics.
Now you find that every time we are just hitting the ball, and Spain was well positioned, and they were getting every loose ball. So at the end of the day, it ended in their favor.
Sure. So that is about today's game. Zambia playing Spain and losing by 5-0. It means that Zambia have been booted out of the ongoing World Cup in New Zealand and Australia. Also, Costa Rica have been booted out, and Japan and Spain have proceeded to the next round. Patrick, we need to be going now.
We need to be going, yes, yeah. So, in case you wanted to give us a message, you can also leave us a message, just like Alex Owisi has left us a message where he's talking about the stage is extremely too big for the Copa Queens, and that next time the team would do better, having learned some lessons. So we can keep interacting. This feedback is important, especially for those that are managing our teams. At the end of the day, football is among the prioritized games in Zambia. Hence, Zambians tend to take a lot of interest. So we have to continuously do whatever we can to make sure that we improve the sport and make sure that we improve our performance and our competitiveness as we participate, especially in global tournaments.
So that's it. That's all the program could accommodate for today. Don't forget to join us again tomorrow at the same time when we bring you another exciting and educative program. On behalf of the entire production team, have a blessed afternoon.